This is Work University, episode 39. This is Work University, and I'm Annalisa Felix. This is where I interview people from various employment backgrounds and get the inside scoop on what their job is really like. If you're just getting into the workforce, or if you're curious about getting into something new, listen up. Today I am speaking with George Chavez, and George Chavez is a fifth grade school teacher in the Santa Clarita, San Fernando Valley area. Welcome, George.
Hey, well, thank you for having me, Annalisa.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. Basically, what is your day-to-day as a fifth grade school teacher?
Oh, my goodness. I've dreamt about talking about this for so long. I've always wanted to be a school teacher, and my school day in a perfect world, in my perfect classroom, starts early in the morning. I just love mornings, getting organized, putting things together, and enjoying the quietness of my class. And then at 7:30 promptly the door opens, and I have games ready for the kids to play, and coming in and making sure all the kids are saying good morning and how are you, Mr. Chavez? And I answer back, how are you doing? Boy, you look nice. Or are you ready for school? Or did you have breakfast yet? Just rich conversation and establishing more of a relationship with these wonderful fifth graders. Mm-hmm. I only have taught fifth grade, and I feel that that's such a wonderful grade. And then once 8:10 starts, the fun begins. We put things away, we sit down, and we start with our pledge for the day, and we start with our memorized poem. And right now we're working on one called Winners of Excellence by Genevieve Shepherd. Such a wonderful poem. Gets us in the right frame of mind. We start English, we have recess, and then we come back for math, which is completely hands-on and project-based. And then we have lunch, come back for a little science or social studies and some extracurricular activities, and our day's over. It just is 6.5 to 8 hours of just intense core virtues, manners, learning, and then we're gone.
What's the ratio for students to teacher?
Well, I've been a fifth grade teacher ever since 1997 till this year, 2020 to 21. So I guess it's 24 years, and the ratio has been anywhere from sometimes 16 in a class when I was in a private school to 34 when I was working in the San Fernando Valley. And so now, since I'm here in Santa Clarita, I have a ratio of no more than 30.
And you introduced your day, you lined it out for me, from school to school, the same. Does it start out with the same subjects during the day, or do you choose what gets put in what place? You know, after lunch, I'm sure that's the hardest subject to teach. Do you basically stack out the schedule, or is that up to?
We strategically start with the hardest subjects. The most subjective subjects would be English language arts, and we also have a English language development also for the kids who don't speak English as their first language. But we always have that in the beginning of the school day, just because their minds are 100% more fresh and they're more ready to learn. And it's easier for us to do math in the middle of the day because there's a 2-hour block there between the recess and lunchtime where I can really get down and dirty and mess up the classroom with coins here and there for fractions and base 10 boards with little chips and Common Core, hands-on kinesthetic stuff all throughout the middle of the day, and that keeps their attention so much. And then in the afternoon, that's kind of when it's more relaxed because the kids are more a little, zoned out sometimes. Sometimes their brain's just so fried because the day is so rich. And so that's usually a good time for PE. But it does vary from school to school. I was at a private school for the first 7 years of teaching, and it was religious-based, and so we got to talk about religion, and it was more laxy-daisy with the schedule. It was a very small ratio from student to teacher, 16 to 1. Sometimes it would be up to about 24 to 1. And then when I went to a public school, it was more so, in my opinion, meet with your team of your same grade level, talk about some objectives and standards that you'd like to cover, and then basically you're kind of on your own. There was no formative test at the beginning that the whole level would do, and then a post-test at the end. It was basically, this is what we're covering, so you cover it in your way. I like that idea because, I'm pretty hands-on-ish and with kinesthetic and project-based, and I'm pretty much an actor type of teacher anyway. And but when I went to this last school, Annalisa, it was very team-oriented, and we're going to be sticking to this lesson. And of course, when you're teaching the lesson, you do with it as you please. But these are the questions we're asking. We're all trying to be on the same page. We're all going to assess the same test so we can analyze data together. So it's kind of different.
You mentioned that your day started at 7:30. What time? What time? And school starts at 8:30. But what time does your day end? Like that you shut the door or you leave the campus?
It's a very subjective question as well. Well, I pride myself in going home almost every day after 5 o'clock. Our day doesn't end at 5 o'clock. It usually ends at 2:50 when we walk the students out to their cars or up the street where they can go home or walk them to the bus. And then I can come back to my classroom about 3:15 every day and close the door and just take a deep breath and just say, okay, there's our day. And so from about 3:15 to 3:30, you just kind of clean up the area. Sometimes kids come in because they forgot their homework or their jacket, or some kids want to talk, or a parent wants to come in and just kind of visit the teacher and just see how their child is doing. And I take pride in that time. And I feel my day doesn't end until it ends. And so I really enjoy that time, just kind of not make lessons for the next day, because I love doing lessons in the morning and preparing for my day in the morning when it's fresh. But in the afternoon, I just kind of take a deep breath and I start kind of cleaning up, looking for ideas, thinking and reflecting how my day went, and answering emails, of course, and returning things to other teachers, maybe some light talk to some teachers, and getting some good constructive criticism, maybe some advice or giving some advice. And so I usually tend to leave the classroom around 4:45 or 5 o'clock on a good day, on a fast day.
So what goes on behind the scenes that we don't know about? What's the administrative? Are there any meetings? Or are there any certifications or things that isn't at the forefront?
Yeah. You mean the nitty-gritty stuff, the grease.
Yes, the grease.
Well, we got some good stuff. And so all those people out there who would like to be a teacher and they have that passion for it, this is all good. We have meetings, yes, once a week we have a meeting with the whole school, and we talk about emergency evacuations. We talk about things that are going on in the PTA. We talk about everything. We just debrief on so many subjects, and also the stuff that's mandated that we have to take care of, like being a mandated reporter and having to take those tests and every year to replenish your certification. And they give us all the goods to remind us. And when you have a great school with a supportive principal and supportive staff, it's such a joy because everyone's there to help one another. And especially the school that I'm at right now, I really feel that all the teachers are there for my students. And in turn, I'm like, you know what? I understand that feeling, and I want to help those first graders or those sixth graders because those are my students as well. And so it becomes like the whole school is your class, and that everyone is there to help the development of that student. The nitty-gritty it's not an easy job. It's one of those jobs where you have to pat your head and rub your tummy at the same time, always. It's one of those jobs where you feel like, yeah, you're not a counselor. You're not trained to be a counselor. But, boy, have you got some good advice for this young child who's just not having a good day, or this child who's just not understanding this work. And so I feel that when I am open enough to talk to my staff about it, I'm saying, I need help, yo. I just need help. Mm-hmm. They're there for me with their different tactics, their different ways of getting through, or they're saying, you know, I know this family, and this is the way this family works. And so we can all give each other a little bit of light so that it can be easier for the student, because ultimately the student comes first. And right. If you're not in this job for the student and for you to see them have their light turned on in some way or another, then this is kind of not a job for you. If you're there for those kids and you love those kids and you believe that they can succeed, well, that's the perfect job for you. One brilliant person said to me, I'll never forget this. They said, if the child is not succeeding, it's because you as a teacher are not letting them succeed. So I took that information and I said to myself, boy, that's a slap in the face. Feels like a slap in the face. What do you mean? And I'm thinking, let me take a different approach then to these students. Let me see how they work. Let me build that relationship with them so I can see how they respond to me, how they are able to understand a math lesson or an English lesson if I find out who they are first. They will definitely learn as much as they can as long as they know they're safe and they're listened to and that they feel like they are worthy in your eyes. Mm-hmm. And then they're just like birds feeding out of your hand, all this wonderful, like, academic stuff. And when I talk to them about a little bit of core virtues like self-discipline or honesty, being trustworthy, being a faithful friend, what it's like to be accountable, how it is to handle stressful situations, they really take pride in understanding that that is part of education as well. Yeah. And when they know that they can do that, they're going to be really open to learning these new academics that they've never heard of and not giving up on them. Right. So that, in my opinion, is the grease. That, in my opinion, is a nitty-gritty. All you have to do is make sure you find them, because us as teachers, that's what we're built to do. And ever since day one, when I became a teacher in 97, I had no idea how to do it. Behavior management was one of my wonderful assets, but I didn't know how to really organize it or really articulate how to do it. I just knew I had good ideas to keep the kids' attention.
How did you always know you wanted to be a teacher?
That's a great question. I always knew I wanted to be a special education teacher. I wanted to be a middle school principal. And before that, my very first desired job was to be a ringmaster for a circus.
Wow.
And ultimately, I feel like I am a ringmaster.
Exactly.
So my dream came true, Annalisa.
Good for you.
No, but yeah, I felt like I've, wondered what my place was in the world. And I started teaching in organizations that I go to on Sunday and with little kids. And, I felt like, okay, I think I can hear them responding to my requests to do this or that. And I said, okay, this is something I do want to do. So I did know that I wanted to do this for a while. Mm-hmm. Because, as a matter of fact, I am an actor also, and I act in many shows. Like I've been the Beast, and I've been Shrek, and I've been the Phantom of the Opera, and I like the headliner stuff. And so I even have an agent. And the crazy thing is that I had a fork in the road one year, and I believe it was in the year 2008. And that fork in the road was saying, you're either going to pursue the acting or full-time, 100%, or you're going to do the education route 100%, and you're going to be happy with one or the other. Well, of course, I took the education route. I needed a steady paycheck was one of my reasons.
Right.
Also, I love teaching. And so I decided, you know what, I can have best of both worlds because I do act at night, and that's where I've been able to do my acting and be able to breathe that air that I love so much. And so it's been the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and it seems like I've heard a lot about teachers having a schedule where they can do other things in the evenings or, on weekends and even summers should they choose to take the summers off. So it sounds like a teaching career is something that leaves time for other passions as well.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? I think it's such a great idea that we get the summers off as well as the kids because, those brains need that little time to transition to the next grade and mature up and soak in that information that they learned all year. Mm-hmm. It's only an 8-week summer, but still that's pretty substantial. We do have, a 2-week spring break or a 1-week spring break where you're considering where you're at, and a 2-week or 3-week winter break, and we do have a 2-day fall break. And we do have some holidays off, like Memorial Day, Labor Day, President's Day, and so we enjoy that so much. But it also comes at the perfect time where these kids are really needing a small break because we really put a lot on these kids. And I tell you, first, what is it? What are they saying now? They're saying that preschool is the new first grade.
Wow.
It's just like there's so much that these kids are responsible for.
What is the career? Because I have a couple more questions, and I do want to respect your time.
No problem.
What is the education path that somebody has to take to be a teacher these days?
Wow, that's a great question. And you know what? I'm a little bit of a late bloomer. I went to a community college for a couple years, not knowing what I was going to really do, but the community college really helped me with finances and just understanding different paths that I could have taken. Mm-hmm. After I took my general ed, it took me about about 4 years in the community college. I took acting classes. I took basic classes for general ed or just your general classes. And then so I had enough credit, and so I went to a university in Costa Mesa, and I had so many credits that I only needed to stay in this university for 2.5 years to get my liberal studies degree. So in 97, I graduated with that, and I could have stayed in school, but I was so antsy in 97. I needed to get married. I needed to start my new class. I was so antsy for that that I just said, you know what, I'm just going to get my bachelor's now, and then I'll pretty much go back to school later. And so that was, in my opinion, in hindsight, I wish I could have stayed in school a little bit longer and endured it because I could have got my clear credential then, because that takes another 1.5 or 2. And now they have other tests that you have to pass too. There's the test that's called the CBEST test, and then you have to take the RICA test that talks about language, and then you have to take the CSET, which is one whole test that has 3 categories, and in each category it's subdivided to 2 categories. So there's 6 areas that you would have to get tested in the CSET test. And so if you don't pass one of the categories, then you can always take that one over again in a couple of months. But some people take it all at one time, and some people just take one subdivision part at a time. It depends on how much they know they can handle. Well, personally, I had to take one of the categories 3 times, and it was very difficult for me to pass the history/PE portion. And so the history really kicked my butt. But then I studied a little bit differently and in a different way, studied more wisely. I got together with groups, and I found a study group for the CSET, and I said, you know what, this is great that we have this support. And then after that, then you're clear. And then I had been on an emergency credential for a little bit after I transferred to LAUSD in the San Fernando Valley, and then the emergency credential got closed down because of the No Child Left Behind Bush Act, and so we had to have a long-term credential, and so that was a little bit difficult to take care of. So I wish, in hindsight, I would have taken these classes before I started teaching. But then again, Annalisa, it's like you can't take these extra clear credential classes unless you're in the classroom getting the practice. the hands-on practice. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise that I was teaching at the same time. But it was sure double work. But it was worth it. I mean, it was worth it. And then lastly, there's this program that all teachers have to pass called the BITSA program. And so that is basically an approach to how you're going to teach, and that takes about a year and a half to fulfill the requirements. And some schools pay for it, and some districts don't pay for it. And so it's pretty much you have to ask your district if they pay for it or not, because some of them do. And so I really enjoyed the BITSA program, but it was a lot of paperwork and a lot of checklist, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And but looking back on it, I have so many strategies and skills under my belt because of the RICA, because of the CSET, because of the BITSA program, and all of my credential classes. They're all beneficial. I still have some of my books left too.
Is it safe to say that there are different checks and things that are required for different school districts then? Because it sounds like there's many different ways to get to where you're at.
Right. You can either do it all at once and have a very good mentor, maybe stick to a teacher that you find that can probably help hold your hand during this experience, because you can do it alone, but it sure is easier if you find a veteran teacher to hook up with. It's so nice when you can go to your elementary school and just say, hey, remember me? I was in your class. I'm wondering, I just have a passion for this. Can you just help me out? I just need to ask, because you were one of my inspirations, and I know that you can really help me out with this, because I want to be just like you. That's all you have to say.
Sounds like it would be good to have a mentor, for sure.
Absolutely. It's such a benefit, because, in the 24 years I've been teaching, I have had students call me up on Facebook and say, hey, I'm like, I don't recognize you with that beard, or I don't recognize you with those 2 children in your hands. They're in their 30s now, but they ask the questions. They say, how did you do this? How did you do that? And it's such a pleasure to give back. It's a pleasure.
George, let me ask you a couple questions left, but this question, it sounds like you really like your job. What about it is not so desirable for you? What about this position, or what about the job is maybe something you don't necessarily look forward to, but it's just part of the job?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, it was a little easier at the beginning at a private school where you didn't have to mark all the data and things like that. It was mostly just cover this and cover that. Like, it was called core knowledge. And then once Common Core started coming about, it was a little bit more difficult, because we had to intertwine the subjects together, like English and science, or math and history. And so it was, having to come up with those lesson plans that was a little bit more difficult. And us as elementary school teachers with that strong sense of, no, let's build our foundation first. Let's keep it separate, folks. Let's do English as a whole, and like with grammar and then conventions and subject and predicate, instead of just writing everything all together and then just differentiating everything. It's really difficult sometimes if you don't understand that whole idea of the Common Core, and if you don't buy into that. So that could be really difficult, because now that I'm in Santa Clarita and everything is just Common Core, and everything is, all the subjects kind of combined together, I love it now, because it was explained to me. But it's now the parents who have to who are telling us, oh, I just don't like this Common Core. And I'm saying, oh, I know that situation that you're in. I wish that you can come with me to my class so you can see what I'm doing with Common Core, so I can get these little American children to be the leaders of tomorrow, instead of other people having to come to our country and just kind of, helping us out. I'm like, we can be the ones that go to other countries to be their leaders. And so that's what Common Core to me is. And boy, it was difficult getting there. And another area that I thought would be a harder situation was the fact that some parents have their complaints, or some teachers say, oh, I love the job, but I don't love the parents. But I have to tell you, that is not my story. If you build a relationship with your parents and you build a relationship with your children and students, you will have the best year, and you will be so supported by your parents. It's not even funny. And so I would just say there's minimal things that kind of make me have a bad taste in my mouth. A lot of it is just the extra, sometimes sleepless nights grading your work. But it makes it worth it in the morning when you have your data to show to your teachers and your administration and your students.
Yeah.
So, some things are oh, man, I can't believe I'm doing this. But it's definitely worth it the next day. Or after you get it done, you're just like, okay. It's just like a homework assignment, or something that you do that's extra. Sometimes those extra things take away from your family, and it sucks. And it's low, but your family understands too where you're at, and they know that you're there to do a good job with teaching, and that's part of it.
George, what advice do you have to anyone who thinks they want to be a fifth grade or a grade school teacher?
My advice is pretty simple. If you love it, if you have a passion for it, if you think you'll do a good job, if you think that you can entertain these kids and kind of juggle and go on a hula hoop at the same time, and you're going to be happy doing all these things at once, you got it. The advice is go for it. Do the struggle work first, but make sure you get a mentor at the same time so that you don't have to struggle through this alone. There are so many people out there who are teachers who have been in your shoes that will help you. You just have to do your homework and find out who they are. Yeah. You can't find those teachers who are lazy and just say, oh, you really want to be a teacher? It's a lot of work. Those are the people you want to shy away from. You need to get those people who are just shining, that teacher of the year teacher, or that teacher that really made you feel special. Find those people and make sure that you shine in the area that you are gifted in. And I'm not much of a computer tech guy, although I have to really be good at it now because it's distance learning with computer. But I shine in the area of finding where the student's power is. And so that's where my area of focus is, because I'm good at finding that the way the kids shine and what they're good at, and praising them and rewarding them verbally and with stickers and with recognition and phone calls home. It's like find your area of strength and make that shine during your time with being certified. My other advice is just make sure that if you stink in an area, you stink with that with the organization of your closets. You stink with the area of technology. Get that help too. Get that help too, because you want to be well sharpened in all areas, and it's going to be worth it. Just struggle and sweat, blood, sweat, and tears. Do it. Do it. Do it.
George, I want to thank you for taking time to dig into the job of it. It is, at the end of the day, it is a job. Thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate it.
I just love it. Sometimes I forget I get paid for doing what I love. You know what I mean?